We'll fire it up. Make sure we're good on Rumble. Okay, cool. Hey, sorry about the technical snafu there. That was really odd. Welcome everybody. Everyone's popping in now. They're figuring it out. Okay, cool. I'm gonna hit record and fire this up. Woo! I'm sweating over here.
You're good, Mike.
Okay,
so
here we
Mike,
go.
do I have to get in on a different link or something? I'm still not seeing anything on YouTube.
Just go back to the Alfa Vedic channel and just go to live, and you'll see where we're at here.
Okay.
Yeah, I fixed the title and stuff, so I don't know. Something got crossed up there. Did you find it, Grant?
I found it. Thank you.
Cool. Okay, here we go. This, creator's testing me today. View speaker. Okay, here we go. And boom, we're back for another episode of Alfacast. I'm Mike Winner, and I'm here as always with the sagacious Dr. Bear Paul Lando, coming to you live and direct from the great state of Jefferson, where freedom still reigns supreme. We had a little technical snafu, so got off to a little bit of a late start here, but we figured out where the gremlins were and got the stream working on Loosh Tube. So thanks for bearing with us over there in that land of censorship. But we're glad to be on that channel because it does allow us to reach whole new audience members. But we are also streaming on Rumble, Unite.live, Facebook, or as we call it, Fakebook, and also Odyssey. And it's a rainy one today. Guess who's back? Bear, winter's back. Guess who's back? Guess who's back?
And it's approaching spring, so I was up all night chasing bears off my front porch. Fortunately, they didn't decide to come in the living room, but I was out there yelling at them. And yeah, I went down there with a flashlight, so there's a racket, and I shine it through the door, and there's just this huge wall of black fur, so anyway, okay. It's like clockwork every year. For what it's worth, I guess it doesn't matter, but I just went on the YouTube link again from our channel, and there's still nothing showing. I mean, I don't have to watch it live, but I don't know why I'm not getting on the YouTube feed.
Yeah, if you just go to the YouTube and then go to the live tab, you'll see it there. You go to our channel and go to the live, you'll see it there. Is that how you got to it, Grant?
I got to it through the Telegram. But,
actually, you don't even have to go to the live.
Okay.
You just go to the channel and it shows you the live. Yeah.
Okay,
So
got it.
on the top there. Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, it's great to have Prezence Music in the house. We had a fantastic time in Anarchapulco this year. Got a lot of serious hang time outside of the event and felt like I got to know you pretty well. And I'm honored to have you with us today. I'll do the quick little intro here and throw it over to Bear. And I'm just really excited to not only share your music and talents with our community, but also to hear from you on not only your journey, but your thoughts on the state of the world and the state of the music industry and everything around your art. So
I think his music says it all as far as how he feels about the state of the world, but we'll get into that.
Touche. Well, those of us who survived the 60s did have one invaluable takeaway. Culture follows music. While powerful anti-establishment lyrics did temporarily redirect the war industry, so we thought, those tumultuous times were orchestrated to plant insidious seeds for a larger psyop that would later reveal itself. On this Alfacast, we have a delightful musical talent making waves through music, but with eyes wide open. Grant Prezence Ellman is a multi-instrumentalist, vocalist, and producer from Sedona, Arizona. His 2021 truth bomb, Dismantling the Scam of COVID and Government, was censored from Spotify within a week of release. Prezence is fiercely devoted to his mission of spreading truth, freedom, and love through radio-ready records, vivid videos, and lucid live performances. His studio work is completely self-produced, mixed, mastered, shot, edited, and promoted with a true DIY ethos and work ethic. On stage, Prezence captivates audiences by live looping multiple instruments, singing soulful vocals, and live mixing, dubbing his loops. His innovative Ableton Live rig pays homage to dub pioneers King Tubby and Lee Scratch Perry, as well as modern dub masters Umberto Eco and Laurent Tippy I. Alfred. With heavy inspiration from modern reggae of Midnight, Protege, Jesse Royal, Kabaka Pyramid, Grant weaves elements of funk, jazz, and rock into a sonic tapestry that is uniquely and undeniably Presence. In just one false election cycle, he's released 3 albums worth of singles, videos to boot. His empowered energy has graced main stages at Rise and Vibes, Unison, Music and Sky, last year, Totality, Viva Arizona, Anarchapulco, The Greater Reset, where he supported the likes of Steel Pulse, Tribal Seeds, Kabaka Pyramid, The Elevators, The Movement, Mike Love, and Dub Effects, just to name a few. Presence is grateful to have found his life's purpose making music and sharing that gift with others. Please join this episode as we have an insightful discussion on the present state of our world. And if we're lucky, Presence just may entertain us with an inspiring tune or two. We were discussing before that Zoom is not being too friendly there. So we're going to play a music video or two and then see what else we can do from there. But so great to have you here, Grant. Bear Lando, take it away, my friend.
Hey, Grant. Really looking forward to this one. Thanks for making time for us, buddy.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It's an honor to be with you. My girlfriend and I always talk about how this is one of our, if not our favorite podcasts. So it's truly an honor to be here. So thank you guys for having me.
Sweet. Thank you. So, yeah, I'm a product of the 60s. I was in college back then, and, we thought we were kind of doing some revolutionary music and everything, but it was kind of a blind rage against the machine without knowing the who, what, and why, which is what you really are explicit about more in your, in your lyrics. And in hindsight, we realized back then we were all getting played on the back end, to set us up for where we find ourselves on the world stage right now. Unfortunately, a lot of my contemporaries from that time period are all flying Ukrainian flags on their Facebook page and still wearing masks. God bless them, but I'm kind of embarrassed. So refreshing to see somebody from another generation that is actually taking it where we thought we were taking it back then. So just amazing. I had a great time when I was putting together a little newsletter for this podcast because I got familiar with your work, and I'm an old reggae surfer sort of guy. So just loved your work. Amazing. Maybe why don't we just jump in right now, and you can tell us how you started this journey, because a lot of people from your generation are maybe not singing the same tune. I'd like to know a little bit about what makes you, walk the path you've taken. And so let's just take it from there, and we'll just kind of have fun and talk.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, thanks so much. Unfortunately, I wasn't alive in the 60s. I kind of wish I was. If there was one time period I could transport myself back to in a time travel machine, it would probably be then. And, go to Woodstock and go to some of these psychedelic, counterculture, revolutionary musical times. But yeah, it's an interesting time we're living in now because it seems like the music industry is so tightly controlled and manipulated, and it's very top down and it's very satanic and everything it promotes almost to an extreme degree. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Ice Spice, not to call anybody out, but I recently came across this artist Ice Spice, and it is some of the most degenerate stuff I have ever seen in my entire life. Just the fact that it's not, you can go on YouTube and you can watch this, and this is being marketed at the younger generation. This music, or, so-called music, is being marketed at our children, at people under the age of 10. And it's just the most degenerate thing you've ever seen. If you haven't seen it, I'd recommend.
Wasn't that the character that had some controversy during the Super Bowl or something? Was like doing weird satanic hand signals or something?
Perhaps. It's a young gal. I think she's probably like 20 or 21 years old, and she just, goes on with the ass shaking, and it's almost like, pornography and music had a baby, and it's wild. So anyways, to get into a little bit of my, go ahead.
Fortunately, I'm unplugged from all that stuff. I'm still listening to Bob Marley and Jimmy Cliff, so I don't even want to give anything else a listen.
Yeah, absolutely. I rarely plug into that either, but occasionally, something kind of comes across my desk where I realize, wow, this is what we're up against as far as the cultural war that's at place, as far as spreading positive culture of natural law, morality, and a positive message to uplift people and raise people's consciousness versus the satanic culture that seems to be predominantly controlled in the music industry and Hollywood and everything like that. But anyways, to give you a little bit of my background, I was a classically trained pianist. I started playing piano at the age of like 4 or 5 years old. My parents actually forced me to take piano lessons all the way through the end of high school, and they said it wasn't an option. It was part of my education. I resented them for it like crazy throughout that entire time period. But then, now I'm so grateful because it gave me this solid musical foundation to be able to express myself. And so when I got older, I started playing in punk rock bands and I started learning guitar and drums and bass and a whole host of other instruments. I went to college at USC for music industry and music production, and I really got to see the inside, the inner workings of the music industry. And I had the opportunity to actually, probably be very successful in the music industry. All of my friends from college, all of my classmates, they all went on to be, touring stadiums and getting, multi-million dollar contracts with different sync licensing deals and all kinds of stuff like that. They're all super successful and, great, more power to them. It just wasn't my path. I decided that I wanted to to go on a completely different journey, and I started really working with psychedelics quite a bit and plant medicines, working on healing my inner trauma and getting to the core of knowing myself, knowing thyself, knowing who and what I really am. And along that journey, I realized that this world is not what we've been told. Almost everything we've been told is a complete and utter lie. And so it's become my purpose to sort of expose the lies and expose the truth and, expose my healing journey and hopefully help to heal and uplift and awaken some other people through musical expressions, which is what I'm working on currently. So that's a little brief background.
Nice, nice. Well, you had smart parents. The music is the third pillar of the classical logic quadrivium education program. So, my mom tried to force me into piano lessons also, but I was not as astute as you were. I rebelled and didn't continue. I wish I did now, but I probably didn't have the talent you have in the first place. So, but yeah, fantastic. Music is so important. And I think it's very telling that musical curriculum has been gutted from the public school system as of recent years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of crazy to see. And, that's one of the things that became really clear to me in the last several years of my awakening journey is just how much the public school and I call them government indoctrination camps. I got that from Jeff Berwick, but that's really what they are. They're just teaching people blind obedience to authority and sapping everybody's creative energy. And I think children are miraculous gifts from God who have enormous creative potential and probably are the greatest teachers here on the earth as well. And I'm excited. I don't have my own children yet, but I'm excited to have my own children and, be able to see what happens when you don't vaccinate them, you don't indoctrinate them, you don't put them in front of an iPad 8 hours a day, and you just support them naturally in going into whatever creative gifts they have. And I think that's really what has the potential to change the world is if we can allow our children to grow into the magnificent beings that they're meant to be. I think that's, the highest potential for humanity or one of the ways we can unlock that. So
Yeah, well
yeah.
said. And, the most important job I think I've ever done is raise my kids. And, you learn with them along the way, but we did all those things that you just mentioned. And, so now they're two adults in their, mid 40s and, they just see through everything. We didn't tell them what to think. We taught them how to think. And that's, again, going back to classical logic. And you don't just take kids and start giving them information and data to memorize, and yeah, I totally rebelled against that when I was a kid and hated school. Now, all these years later, I realize what I was rebelling against.
I just want to say it's so refreshing for someone your age to be saying that, because there's so much of this victimhood in the quote unquote truther realm of people saying, I can't imagine bringing kids into this world. It's so dark. And really, it's what you just said is the most important, as you know, Bear reiterated, it is the most important thing. It's like we need, the young families to be prospering and to be growing for the purpose of our next generation, right? So I can't think of anything more important. And same for me as a father, and music has always been a huge part of our life. We do a lot of live rapping in the kitchen where we come up with
Yeah.
topics and then we just start flowing and I throw it to my son and it's a great mental exercise. But yeah, music is the universal language, right? It's so important for breaking through. We called this episode "Breaking the Spell Through Music," and that's been a huge part of Music and Sky. Is using the arts as a conduit of truth that breaks through the mental realm, right, and through the stratification of concepts of ideas to go to the heart, to go into the emotional side of people. And that is really what's so important about music and art and what we saw in the 60s, and how that got side railed by the CIA and drugs and all that. But now it seems like we are at a time where music is having its new renaissance within the underground, and you're a part of that. How to kind of just bridge off coming from USC, which, and we won't hold that against you as a Trojan. Uh,
Trojan horse.
yeah. So what was it, your inspiration then to sort of, so you saw your friends that were, finding success in the conventional means. How did you get propelled into moving into the underground more of this truth music? Was it COVID? Like, what was really your initiation into that?
Yeah, awesome. That's a great question. So, yeah, it was definitely COVID, I would say, was the thing that really was the big catalyst for me. And I know it was that way for a lot of people. And I think that's an important thing to note because it makes us realize that these things, extreme deceptions and extreme psyops can actually be the greatest gift to humanity in a lot of ways. And it seemed so dark while it was happening, but it actually propelled and catalyzed so many people into taking action that maybe they weren't before. And I remember before that, I told you a little bit about my Airbnb business that I started back in 2019, and I just started that, and I had like 8 properties going, and right around April of 2020, everything shut down and my whole business shut down. And I was like, oh gosh. And simultaneously, I was just so frustrated. And I was so, I was not going to be wearing a mask. I was not going to be told what I could and couldn't do with my own body. And so I was getting arrested all the time, kicked out, or not arrested, but, cops were being called on me, kicked out of grocery stores, things like that. And it created more and more tension and anger. And Mark Passio, one of my teachers, he calls the anger the sacred gift of anger. People in the New Age community, they often want to shy away from anger. They want to say, oh, don't look at anything that's quote unquote negative because, don't give your energy to anything negative. And he's like, no, we need to accept the full spectrum of human emotion and realize that anger can actually be a powerful catalyst. So yeah, that was really what it came down to, is just feeling so fed up. And then around 2021, the song Scam came to me, and that song still to this date was my most popular song. And it just came out of me really wanting to speak truth to power and want to express that anger in a more healthy way. And, I'm just so grateful that that song reached as many people as it did, and that the anger I felt could be catalyzed into something that could actually empower and inspire other people. And so ever since then, that's kind of been the goal, is to just create anthems and transmute that darkness that we see in our world into light. So
Yeah, well said again. If you look at emotions and we liken them to an octaves, which is really what it is, it's music. That if you want to talk about negativity, it's being passive and depressed because you're just in this lower form of stagnation. But when you get a little pissed off, your energy starts moving. And then, of
Yeah.
course, the trick is just to move it up the octaves into a really conscious direction. And then, like they say, you can move mountains with that. So, and then what better way than with music? And of course, we're taught, don't get mad and just kind of hold that within you. And then it causes all sorts of issues, including illness in your body. And we're taught that it's, likened to toxic masculinity and
Yeah.
everything. But yeah, another part of the psyop. So yeah, amazing. Yeah, so go on and
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And I think that's one of the things that causes so much of it is the cause of toxic masculinity is holding anger within and not actually being able to transmute it. And that's definitely something that I've noticed within myself as I've gone on a journey of self-discovery is that's my biggest potential shadow is holding anger and holding dark emotions within myself and not having a vehicle to express them. And I think that, yeah, music and art and anything that we're really here to do, I think that everybody here on this earth has some kind of divine gift that it's our life's purpose to seek out and discover and know thyself and figure out what that gift is so that we can transmute those dark, energies and those shadows within us into something more beautiful and more positive. So, yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Bear.
maybe talk a little bit. It sounds like you had some business interests. You're obviously an entrepreneur, and maybe we can just kind of segue into the import of being an entrepreneur instead of an employee.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this kind of gets back into also, all three of us have hit on how we all hated school and we felt like we never wanted to be, obedient to some other authority. And I think along that journey, when you get older and you become an adult, you have to figure out if you're going to live your life as an employee or if you're going to live your life as the creator of your own reality. And for me, I knew that I never wanted to work for anyone else. I wanted to figure out a way to support myself. So back in around 2019, I had just gotten out of college and I realized that it would be very beneficial to have some kind of alternate, source of passive income so that I didn't need to trade my time for money. And then that would give me the ability to focus on making music that was truly authentic as an expression of my soul and not have to necessarily compromise my message or compromise my integrity in order to suit the needs of some record label or some other party. So yeah, I basically just bought this course called Airbnb Formula or B&B Formula, and I learned the ins and outs of how to run a successful short-term rentals business. And I did that in Aspen, Colorado, where it's, very lucrative. It's a popular ski destination, and it gave me the ability to fuel my love of skiing. And I skied like 80 days the season I started my business, and at the same time was able to get something off the ground that provided passive income so that I was able to, not have to compromise my message of my music in order to fit somebody else's vision and also not have to work as an employee. And I see both of y'all are doing that as well in many ways. And so very inspiring to see. And yeah, just for anybody out there who's feels like they're on this grind, this 9 to 5 grind, I would encourage you. Nowadays, there are so many ways that you can make a living without having to trade your time for money. You can go on YouTube and literally there's blueprints upon blueprints of tons of people who have done this. And you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't necessarily have to come up with a completely new ingenious idea. You can look and find somebody else's model and you can take that and figure out how to apply it to your own life. And then think about the amount of freedom and sovereignty that comes from being fully self-responsible and having, self-responsibility over your financial affairs and being able to put your energy into something that's meaningful and purposeful without having to have necessarily an expectation of making money. Like my music project is still quite small. I'm not reaching, millions of people and getting millions of streams yet. I'd like to be doing that eventually, but right now I can just focus on staying true to myself and staying true to the music. And for me, that's the most important thing.
Nice. Interesting little factoid. In the early part of the 1900s, over 90% of the people in our country were independent business owners or
Mhm.
entrepreneurs. And at present time or in recent years, that's totally flipped, where 90% of the population are employees And over 50% of those people make their living directly or indirectly from some kind of government bureaucracy. Of course, all by design.
Yeah. Yeah,
Just,
absolutely.
yeah.
That is fascinating. I had no idea, but that actually opens up a segue that we could get into some stuff about the early 1900s because I know
Oh,
you
nice.
guys are on this tip as well. And one of the things that I've been recently discovering, back a few years ago, I started, reading Graham Hancock, and I got into this idea of, ancient civilizations and the pyramids, and starting to understand the geometry, the sacred geometry, and how that relates to frequency and all this kind of stuff. However, one of the biggest psyops, in my opinion, that I've been learning about over the last couple of years is how much history has been hidden and destroyed by World War One, World War Two. In my opinion, it was just one massive war designed to wipe out all memory of the early 1900s, late 1800s, when we were living with advanced technology already. We already had electric cars, free energy, magical frequency technology, and these mega cathedrals, which have incredible healing potential and built to precise acoustic proportions that would heal the body. So there wasn't actually necessarily religious, churches or things like that, but it was actually you just go in and they would have master organ players who would heal the body through frequency magic and things of that nature. So that's something that I've been learning about and is also inspiring to see how I can start to integrate that into my music a little bit more. I know both of you are probably familiar with Steve Young, and he's a master of this kind of stuff. He has a
Head
musical
flux.
project, Head Flux, exactly. And he has an album called Soul Science where he has at perfect harmonic ratios. So all of his scales are tuned to, it's called true temperament scales. So, sorry, not true temperament, but just intonation, which means that every single harmonic ratio of the notes in the scale are tuned to precise, 1.5 times the frequency, say for a fifth and things like that. Instead of, what we have on most pianos these days is an approximation called equal temperament, which is just, I'm going to get a little bit into the weeds here for people who are not hip to this kind of knowledge, but basically everything in modern music is kind of an approximation so that we can play in different keys. And I think what people had knowledge of in the ancient days, or maybe not so ancient days, is that we can actually have precise harmonic ratios that create massive amounts of healing energy for the body and for our earth and, probably beyond. So,
And all of what you're describing there is exactly how nature unfolds itself. The elements on the periodic table, our bodies, it all follows the music of the spheres, so same tunes. And yeah, people like you are drawing our attention back to the way this is also borne out in Genesis, if you understand the
mhm.
geometry of the first verse of Genesis and how those are actual tonal fields in geometry, and then it creates a toroidal field, and we get into that kind of stuff too. So yeah, well,
Yeah.
we're just like you say, everything has a silver lining, and we all kind of went to sleep for a while. When you wake up, not only are you becoming self-realized again, but when you come full circle, you've lost that sort of vulnerability that we all succumb to, to put us asleep in the first place. So we're like children all over again, but with eyes wide open.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's cool that going back to the entrepreneurial side too. It's like, yeah, you have the freedom to make your own decisions on however you want to produce and tune your music and take the time to do it. And really, time is the true value metric here, right? And that's something that I found someone who hasn't worked for anyone since 2005 is I get to decide my time and my position in terms of what my priorities are, and that's so important as an artist, right? Like
Yeah.
so crucial. And yeah, the tuning side of things. So I've known Steve personally for quite some time. He used to do a retreat called Audio Alchemy, where he was teaching producers this, how to tune your productions in this way. So is that what you've implemented in your music as of now? Or is that something you plan on doing? That was actually a question too in the Rumble chat here about 432 hertz tuning and all of that.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that, and it's not something that I've done in all my productions. I have done it in some productions as far as the 432 hertz, but I think a lot of people get hung up on 432 hertz. That's just one frequency, right? That's not related, that's not the harmonic ratios between all the notes in the scale as Steve teaches.
yeah,
So that is something that I've yet to actually implement in my productions, but it's something that is very high on my priority list. The difficulty for me is that I have a lot of instruments like this here melodica, which is, I have lots of wind instruments that are not stringed instruments, so they can't be retuned and they also can't be tuned to these precise temperament scales. So the kind of stuff that Headflux is teaching is really well applied to electronic music and synthesizers. And actually, Ableton in the recent update, they actually created a way that you can micro tune and you can tune all of your instruments to these precise harmonic ratios. So now that that update has been released, that's definitely going to be something that I'm diving into more. It's just that for me, as someone who plays a lot of actual physical instruments, I'm not just a guy, clicking notes in on a computer. I'm actually playing a lot of physical instruments. And so it becomes a little bit harder to actually tune all those instruments to these precise harmonic ratios. That being said, it can be done, and I think that the effort is worth it. And when you listen to someone like Headflux, you can really hear the healing potential of the music and stuff like that. So
But what you're doing, you've got your own mana that's being projected through those instruments, so that's going to more than compensate for the electronic specificity.
exactly, that's definitely part of it. That's a really good point. And I think that that's the thing that a lot of times, sometimes I start going a little bit more heavily towards the electronic production because you can make things very precise and you can quantize everything to a grid and things like that. But then you lose some of that human feel. And the human feel is the thing that's that intangible quality. And that's the thing that, everything has gone digital. We don't use analog tapes anymore and stuff like that. And everybody is trying to recreate that feel, that mojo, that sort of vibe that the older records had. And a lot of that came from just excellent musicians being in a flow state. And an excellent musician in a flow state is something that can't be replicated by a computer. It can only be done by a human, right? And so that's the kind of thing that as much as I want to, have all these precisely tuned harmonic ratios, there's a balance too between that and then also having that divine flow and that
yeah.
just that
Well,
kind of thing. So there's a
yeah.
balance to be struck there. Yeah.
And the
Steve,
human voice cannot be duplicated by anything. Sorry, Mike, go ahead.
I don't know. There's some pretty good AI out there.
There's some pretty good AI out there for sure, but it's
Um,
like let the AI do the stuff that we don't want to do. I don't
yeah,
like I've been editing my videos for years and years and it takes so much time and effort and I like doing it to a degree, but I think we can start to offload tasks to the AI that are not our divine purpose or maybe are not, or maybe are taking away from what our true divine purpose is and then we can focus more on doing the things that are our personalized skill set. That's kind of
yeah.
my opinion on
Couldn't
that. And
agree. Couldn't agree more with that. I'd love to touch a little more on AI. I was going to get into that a little later in terms of you being a musician right now and the sort of what some of the quote unquote fears are, which you've already dispelled a bit there. But real quick, back to these perfect harmonic modulations and everything that like synthesizers can do. Well, what Steve often talks about is the qualitative metric over the quantitative.
hmm
And, going back to Pythagoras, who is really one of the, founders of this sort of perfect fifths tuning, right? And that was all how to, come down to the harmonic vibration of strings, which is an analog vibration that is tuned by one's ear. We are
Yep.
talking about something that is qualitative in measurement in terms of the analog because it's not perfect zeros and ones. So there's elements to that as for instance, me as a DJ, I bring in a lot of hand instrument, hand drum tracks in when I'm playing a more like open style set, not necessarily just a straight up house set, and I love doing that because there is a human, like Bear said, there's a chi that comes through that is impressed upon the, originally it was tape, right? That was then pressed onto a record, and that is an analog impression of that chi that is resonating in the field. That is not just a quantitative digital simulated recording. And that to me is so important. That when I used to work in the music industry, we were actually still recording. And I think I talked to you a little bit about this, how we were
Yeah.
working with this country artist and we were going to have him be the next big thing. Well, we were doing it old school analog recording to really high fidelity tape. For that reason, I thought it was really cool. And we had guys from Toto coming in and like Lucifer and stuff to record.
Yeah.
And but what was, they were all there because we were doing it old school. And I think there's really something important there, and I know Steve would agree, around the human instrumentality and the recording of analog versus digital that sort of harks back to the true harmonics. And man, it's, I don't know if you've ever thought about recording in that way or pressing that way. I know vinyl's just kind of really niche, but when we hear you play live and you were actually doing live drums like at Music in Sky, which was really fun and cool versus your drum machine, that is, there's an experience there that can't be quantified. It's like an emotion, more of an emotional experience. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's the thing that creates, for me, when I get inspired in the studio, it's usually because of a physical instrument. It's usually because of something that's happening in the physical realm where I can, you know, where you can play with the instrument. That's why they call it playing. They call playing an instrument because you are in a state of divine play. And so I sometimes get a little bit of creative block when I'm getting overly into the whole digital realm. And the digital tools and the technology is extremely powerful in that, like, I'm sitting here in my little studio right here and I can make records that, back in the day would have taken millions of dollars of equipment to be able to get the kind of fidelity that I'm able to get with a laptop, an audio interface, a couple of
Yeah.
microphones, and the things that I have here. That being said, the thing that still gets that mojo and that juice and that inspiration flowing for me is the physical instruments. And we got Conspiracy Music Guru in the chat. He knows what we're talking about too. And he says, "Speak in my language." And I know he's doing that as well, as far as like playing the physical instruments and how that brings that life back to music. And I think that, if you ever wanted to collaborate on a DJ set where we do live instruments with a DJ set, that's one of the things that I love doing as well, is like, how can we bring live instruments back in with the DJ set? The set that I played at Music in Sky, technically it's a DJ set. I'm playing my tracks off of Ableton, but I'm singing with my, live vocal and playing a live drum kit, which adds that element of like, oh, this is actually being created on the spot. And there's a flow state that can be reached there. And, there's a flow state that can be reached from spinning on the decks too. There's a flow state that can be reached through all of this stuff. So yeah, it's fun. I love it. I love all this stuff.
Another important thing, and this is more of an anthroposophical understanding, is that we do not listen or hear with our outer ears. The outer ears are actually meant to screen out noise. But the resonance then is carried to the inner ear, which is through a water medium. And then that goes from that water medium right to the cerebral spinal fluid and directly to the water medium in our etheric body, which is the astral body, which is our emotions. So we hear with our astral body, with our emotions. And the really cool thing about that is if you're in a group experience listening to the same thing, the astral body does not know the same boundaries as more the physical plane. So it really allows us to kind of merge together into a positive group experience and create a unity through music. And that's why music is so important and revolutionary, and why at different historical times they kind of tried to control that medium into certain ways.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I couldn't agree more. And one thing that came to mind while you were saying that too is not only do we have the cerebrospinal fluid and the water in the body, which we know that music and frequency can structure water, but then in addition to that, we have piezoelectricity. So we have piezoelectric crystal resonators in the body as well, which then if the music is vibrating at harmonics that resonate the and structure the water in the body and the piezoelectric crystals, then it can actually have the ability to activate our higher faculties. And perhaps that's the way that we're able to actually transcend into these astral realms that you're talking about.
Yeah.
And, the dynamic of that when you're in an audience of, 10,000 people or something, some of these shows that happened in the 60s, I think there was, 80, 100, sometimes 200,000 people in a crowd, all vibrating to the same frequency. And the power that that has is immense. I mean, it's
Yeah.
absolutely immense. So,
Absolutely. It's kind of a twofer as well because you're what we're talking about through the water medium and the astral level. That's actually that transmitting utility of the whole creative mechanism of precipitation. So when you're actually making those kind of alterations on the astral plane, then that goes right into the physical. So you're transmutating the physical at the same time. So it's transformative on all
yeah,
planes. It goes full
yeah.
circle. That's how you make changes is through the astral first.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's been also a lot of like dark magic around the music concerts and stuff we've seen in the last few years where they're using like these low bass resonant frequencies to control the lower chakras, and which can be, as a DJ, I try to really embrace too, because that's where a lot of cleaning can come out and you want to embrace those lower chakras. But if they're super discordant and you have also music that's delivering messages that isn't enlightening, it isn't uplifting, we've seen where that can be quite dark as well, which the dark magicians understand this.
Right.
They understand where this stuff comes from in these unseen realms. So that's why it's also super important to get kids and, the youth that are coming up away from like Ice Spice or whatever, and and um and into, acts like yourself and Steve and Music Conspiracy Guru and stuff, because the messaging is so important as well. And your messaging is so on point. I wanted to touch on this because one thing that I really appreciate about you is not only do you obviously bring to light some of the problems we have and like the obvious scams and psyops and all of that, but then within your music, it's solution oriented, right? You talk about self-governance. You talk about, not being a victim and seeing through the lies and then using that as a self-empowerment tool. And that's something I really appreciate. And is that something you got out of Mark Passio? Or, I think that's appropriate that you played at Anarchapulco a few times in Music and Sky and stuff, because that's like one of our huge points here is it's about self-governance, not giving power away to officialdom or government and stuff like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's something, we could touch on. So going back to what you're saying about I totally agree about, they're using these dark frequencies to keep people trapped in the lower chakras, and then they're imbuing this messaging. And the messaging, the thing that the mind controllers and the social engineers, they understand is everything is ruled by the subconscious. The subconscious is what creates the majority of our actions that we take in this physical world, and our actions are what results in whether we're in a free society or an enslaved society, right? And so the people like, for example, Bruce Lipton have talked about how the subconscious is really the tool to be able to change reality and change our behavior so that we can align it with the world and the actions that we want to create for a better future. And so, yeah, getting into the messaging side of things, I think that totally, a lot of my messaging it is kind of F the system type of thing, but I always want to bring it back to the solutions, because that self-ownership and that self-empowerment and non-aggression principle, self-defense principle, principles of voluntarism, that's what I want to really hit on as far as putting those positive affirmations into our subconscious as prayers so that we can then go out and begin to actualize and create a more free world through our actions. So,
Nice.
Yeah.
So, any way we could fire up one of your tunes?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, obviously going to Jungian sort of collective unconscious, right? That's being played out, and you're seeing those archetypes of the well, not necessarily archetypes, but like almost like an egregoric beast creatures that are created in pop culture. And I'm trying to think of that other artist. She's like always dressed up like a demon and stuff.
Oh,
Um,
Doja Cat. Maybe
Doja
Doja.
Cat too,
Yeah,
and
yeah, it's
which is
wild.
super dark. And you see it though in mainstream society as the aesthetic. So we were talking about this with Shannon, who was in earlier, and how she was recently down in Humboldt, and just like the general aesthetic of like sort of your traditional college kid now is just like intentionally ugly. It's really weird, dude. It's like it's cool to look ugly. And we
Yeah.
see that in the aesthetics of like your average strip mall in America. And you see it with, all the massive home build outs and stuff of like,
Mm,
these multifamily dwellings that are being pushed out. And in every element of architecture and fashion, even in high fashion, it's all ugly. The
mm,
aesthetics of ugliness.
It's kind
mm.
of the architecture is reminiscent of old Soviet style,
It really
Yeah.
isn't
is.
it?
Yeah.
With a little bit of an IKEA twist.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it's just like just angles of sorrow, concrete structures that are just, so depressing. And I only bring that up because I believe that is, as Bear put in his intro, is culture comes down from music. And
yeah.
when you've got ugly music that is consumer driven, commercially driven, and also driven by just darkness, that is going to exude into the culture in a way aesthetically, because we're talking about aesthetics here, right? Where we see ugliness all around us. And that's why we try to bring beautiful aesthetics to music and sky. Color,
Yeah.
lots of color and brightness and imbuing nature into it. Like our stage last year was a rising sun with bamboo and beautiful lighting, and that was really important for us, is the aesthetic of like our stage design and stuff. Versus, I'm trying to think, was that odd, what was the one that down in Houston or whatever, where kids were literally falling over and having heart attacks with what's his name,
Mm. Uh,
the hip hop artist that was doing it,
yeah, I know what you're talking about.
and it was like the background was like you're going through a portal into hell. Was it
Travis Scott, I think it
Travis
was.
Scott? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. It's like they're literally doing satanic rituals at every single, Olympic opening ceremony, at every single halftime show, at the, whatever. It's always a giant satanic ritual, and they're using music as the catalyst for their satanic ritual. And then they're getting all of the young culture, the cult, to buy into this ugliness and this degeneracy, when
Yeah.
what we're creating on the other side is we're bringing back the beauty way. We're like, let's bring beauty into and harmony and connection with nature. And so, yeah, you can't fight fire with fire. You gotta fight fire with water. You gotta, bring beauty as the antidote, I think. So,
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
the pendulum swinging the other way, and
Well, I
yeah,
will say,
it's
whether you like it or not, like I got a lot of my reservations. We can probably get into this later with the MAGA movement and stuff and all that. It's just another externalization. But if you compare that with just sort of the left, the average MAGA person is like a beautiful buxom blonde, or like a cowboy dude that's all healthy. And just in general, the aesthetics are so much better. And like your typical leftist, blue-haired, overweight. I'm not trying to do generalizations here, guy, and not trying to be super critical of people, but it's very
but in
obvious,
this
right?
case, the stereotypes are really true.
So true. And so yeah, the pendulum is definitely shifted there. I think people have gotten tired of the ugliness for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. So,
Yeah, ugly. Some RR in the chat said ugly is the new protest. And it's like, in a way, I'm happy they're slapping masks on their face. Okay, so go ahead and let's fire up. What are we gonna play here? The psyop.
yeah, let's do
Yep,
psyop.
that's a great
Okay,
one.
thank you. All right, let's see.
And you also, this is all independent. You shoot your own video. You're a one-man shop in a way, right? How much help do you have in this?
Yeah. So I wrote all the parts, produced everything, recorded everything, wrote all the lyrics, shot the video, edited, flew the drone, had a little bit of help, with some camera work from my beautiful lady Jen. But other than that, it's a one-man show. So yeah, and I think that
while you're firing that up, can you mention your website? Because the
yeah.
website is great. It has all your, not just your music, but your lyrics and everything, which I really enjoyed just reading the lyrics.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my website is prezencemusic.com and it's spelled Prezence. So it's like the Zen in presence, Prezence music.com. And yeah, as you alluded to, I have all the lyrics there. So if you want to, learn the lyrics so you can sing along, they're all there. And again, like I said before, the lyrics are their affirmations and prayers that we can use to, integrate into our subconscious and hopefully increase our level of consciousness.
Awesome. I got the psyop lyrics up here on my screen.
Okay,
So I'm going to
sweet.
follow along.
Yeah, and I actually recently I've been putting the lyrics. The lyrics are actually in the video too, and it's extremely
nice.
it's painstaking work to actually make the captions. But I've been doing it because I want people to be able to learn the lyrics. So here we go. This one's called Psyop.
Social media deliver propaganda. Shutting down all of the psyop, man. Another false flag now. A propaganda delivery device, A possibility the people stop buying into the puppetry. Embrace a life fulfilled by what's in harmony. False selection, use discretion, find perfection of our honesty. Honest with ourselves right now. If we honest with ourselves, we see theater for the masses at play. Masses at play. Call the curtain, I'll determine what to do and what is right for me. Self-responsibility. Disengage from the world as a stage. We got to channel our rage into productivity. We got to know absolute state of relativity. Gotta lose attachment to emotional negativity. We got to disengage from the publicity of all the actors, actresses who put us in harm's way. We got to stop the worship of human sacrifice. Pedophile blaze the fire on Babylon and their conspiracy. They coming with another psyop stage, another false flag plan. False flag plan. First casualty of war is the truth, and we ignoring the scam. Ignoring all the scams right now. Keep on shouting from the rooftop. Disengage from Instagram. Instagram. Cause social media deliver propaganda to the palm of your hand. Palm of your hand. Social media deliver propaganda to the palm of your hand. The media already admitted to all the vax damage. A little fact sandwich between a couple piece of lies on toast. COVID misdiagnosed. A big nothing burger reduce a population with injected murder. Public somehow forgotten that MAGA really meant Java catastrophe. Clear people out of the street, soon replaced by a new definition. American idiot shit, and in diapers can't formulate a sentence without a script to write a. One false flag to the next. Look to your right now, look to your left. No free speech on Twitter or X. And the car gonna wreck if you drive while you text. When your mind always jump from a thing to the next. Then ejaculate to Pornhub sex. Everybody compete for the baddest flex. Get a new iPhone cause it got better specs. So perplexed, people haven't learned yet. Government only giving lies and threats. Run a hamster wheel from your birth to your death. Gotta work to your sweat, gotta pay that debt. Stop, meditate and calm your breath. Stop, meditate and calm your breath. Stop, meditate and calm your breath. Because they coming with another psyop stage. Another false flag plan. False flag plan. First casualty of war is the truth, and we ignoring the scam. Ignoring all the scam
amazing.
Thanks. Hopefully the audio came through okay.
Yeah, it did pretty good.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that track, man. I love, and I also love, someone who's directed music videos and stuff is that, a lot of artists, even independent artists, they have like a music director that or a music video director comes in with their vision and they kind of sync up with the track. But you can tell this is like you picking the every single frame, right? It's your sensibility, your taste, and it's really well done because
Thank you.
the visuals are really good with the music.
And infinitely, with all the merging of the different media you put together, it's infinitely more impactful than anything they throw at us, through the propaganda. So
Yeah.
game over. It's
Thank
over.
you. I was laughing watching it because, the whole song is about how the psyops just keep speeding up and they just keep rolling them out one after another because it's like they're losing their grip on reality, right? So they're
Yeah.
pulling out all the stops. That was kind of the impetus for writing the song. And it's funny just to see like how all the footage that I put in there, it already dates itself from, 7 months ago or whatever, because now I can think of 50 other pieces of B-roll that I would put in there from everything that's been going on. But that was the whole point of the song, is like they're always going to have another distraction. They're always going to have another justification for their immoral BS that they're pulling, and justification for another war and another bombing and another plane hitting a building and everything like that. And what are we going to do? It's all about self-responsibility. We have to withdraw our attention from, constantly feeding into the one thing after another. And we have to draw back our self-responsibility, take back our power, take back our control, and focus on what we can do as sovereign beings to heal ourselves and to heal the world around us. So that was
And
kind of
what they do is non-sustaining. There's no mana behind it. They need us to fuel it. So as soon as we disengage, it's game over. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
thanks.
it's also you're just pulling the curtain away from, all the magic tricks that people are still falling for, with voting and believing in systems and believing in saviors and stuff. That, as Bear said, you're giving your mana, you're getting your energy away to those systems that will continually try to control you through the magic tricks. And that's what's so wonderful about art and music, and like a music video like that is it just quickly dispels all of the magic tricks right there, and it's fun because you get a laugh at it.
Yeah.
It's very alchemical in that way. It's very like transmuting all that darkness into humor and into just showing how ridiculous it is.
Yeah, totally. Thank you so much. I appreciate your guys' feedback on it. And yeah, and I think one of the beautiful things about music too and artwork in general is that it's a living, breathing thing where I created that piece, I've spent, probably hundreds of hours creating that piece of music and the video and the editing. But then every time somebody watches that video, they might pick up on a different thing, or they might interpret it in a different way, or their consciousness might engage with a different lyric or a different visual element because there's so much there. And, that it can be an evolving thing. And so much of the really great music that I've listened to that inspired me throughout my life, it's like the music evolves as I evolve as a person, and the music takes on new meaning as I walk through life. And I'm sure y'all feel the same way about some of your favorite music. Mike, you were saying that Bear is a big reggae head from Marley and stuff like that. So I'd love to ask Bear what some of his favorite music is, and both of you guys what some of your favorite music is that's inspired you. And
Yeah, Marley for sure. And I was going to ask you, have you ever spent any time in Jamaica?
I did. I could play that video next if you guys want to see that
Oh,
one.
I'd
But
love
I
to.
did I did a video in Kingston last February. It was my first time going there, and I got to, really feel the birthplace of reggae music for the first time, and that was a powerful experience. A lot of darkness there, a lot of darkness. It's a gnarly place, and at the same time, it's
Yeah,
beautiful. It's so beautiful,
yeah.
and I just got to see all of my favorite artists. They just like walk the streets, and they're hanging out at Kingston Dub Club, and it was a mind-blowing experience to go there for the first time as somebody who's been so heavily influenced and so inspired by this music for the last, decade of my life, to be able to go and see it in person. And I did actually drive all the way across the island through the national park and got to feel some of the mana of, up in the mountains there. And so
Yeah.
I shot a video for my song Change Ourselves out there in Kingston. I brought my drone and everything like that. So
Yeah,
um,
I was going to say, I had a little extended time in the Blue Mountains,
yeah,
and
Blue Mountains.
and actually in a little village, it's just a big ganja village and everything. But it wasn't like, walking through Humboldt and then, finding yourself in the middle of a cartel grow. They were just like pure love, hey, welcoming, and we hung out, and just really amazing people. And so they're different than the lower lying coastal cities. They're really embodying the whole spirit of Rasta, the whole philosophy, and a lot of what I was going to say. Yeah, there's a lot of darkness in places, and in the whole Caribbean for that matter. But up in the mountains there's a lot of light as well, because they are really,
Yeah.
living the philosophy,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
you
And
really feel where the music came from.
yeah, and I definitely wanted to clarify that. I did when I said gnarly, I'm not referring to like the people. I'm referring to the way that you can feel the way that the island has been economically oppressed and, pillaged
Yeah.
by other interests that, they just want to come in there. And then, governments that and a lot of what, the true message of Rasta is about self-empowerment, and it is about dignity, and it is about self-ownership. And that's one of the reasons why reggae music has been so inspiring to me as a art form, is because the message behind the music has always been in, taking back our inner authority, taking care of ourselves, loving our neighbor as ourselves, divine law, natural law. All of those things are really imbued into the message of, the true Rastas, in my opinion. So,
Yeah, I took it that's what you meant. I had a lot of adventures in the Caribbean because I had some business ventures over there, and got to spend extended time on a lot of those islands. And what the outer exploitive forces, like the Clinton Foundation in Haiti and places, yeah, that's the darkness. I knew you were referring to that. But the people there, and just the everyday culture, when you kind of get into it, it's wonderful.
Well,
The
what the
colors, we were talking
Rastas,
about the colors, and
oh
the
yeah,
music, everything.
you
yeah.
know what the Rastas would call that gnarliness? That's Babylon.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And how funny is that's become a really popular terminology back in sort of the truth or freedom movement now, as there's like a really a deeper understanding of what Babylon is, and of course in the Rasta movement that was to represent Western, the Western control forces, right, upon the African diaspora of slavery and all that. But then of course they have the promised land, which is Zion. um,
Exactly.
and it's a lot of the Rasta sort of, cosmology is based on the Bible, and it's based on, like you were saying, like these principles of natural law. And so, yeah, I've always found it to be right at home in a lot of the Rasta sort of ethos and stuff. It makes a lot of sense. And for me, coming to answer your question, I came out of ska. It's funny, like I fell in love with ska in high school because it was like a huge reemergence where I happened to be living in Orange County in the 90s, and it was the third wave. But then I got really into the second wave, going back to like the UK, like the Specials and Madness and those guys. And those, of course, came out of Jamaica. So ska is the original music that Jamaica, that reggae came out of.
Hmm.
And it's also where the original DJ came out of. So it was interesting that ska is what, like, sort of where I first found ska, and punk rock is where I kind of first found my own music as a high schooler. And then that eventually led me to being a rave DJ, which is weird. So I kind of did the inverse, but yeah, like Lee Scratch Perry, we talked about in the
Yep.
opening, was like really, really important for that. And like bringing that transference of ska music into reggae has a really interesting history. And that is an original Jamaican music. And you had the two tone. So speaking of like that polarity of like the Rasta and then like the hardcore sort of tyranny, that is seen in the two tone, the white and black of the checkered square, checkered white and black. Illuminati confirmed. But yeah, so anyways, that was sort of where and then I discovered in my pot smoking days in college, reggae, and specifically like Bob Marley and Wailers and stuff. But yeah, I always appreciated how the original DJs also came out of Jamaica. So a lot came out of that little island, man.
Yeah, so much. And I mean, it's also, Lee Scratch Perry and King Tubby and people like that, the original dub masters, that was originally the foundations of hip hop too. And kind of what you're saying about DJing, like those guys were DJing with full analog mixing boards, and they had their entire production stemmed out onto individual channels. And then they had racks of outboard gear that was all different delays and reverbs and different effects that they would be sending through the analog console. And that dub is really what's been inspiring some of my recent music, because just the ability to take a fully produced track and then throw it onto an analog console and mix it live on the fly with every single individual channel, and then be able to individually add effects to each individual channel. Like that in itself was a really beautiful art form that a lot of people have forgotten about. But like you said, it's the foundation of a lot of modern music that we know of today, and all of it coming out of this tiny little island in the sun is pretty amazing.
Sampling.
And one other thing that's funny too is, sometimes people hear me and they say like, is he singing with a Jamaican accent? And then they like accuse me of cultural appropriation and stuff like that. And it's like, listen, man, all I do is I love this music. I've listened to this music since I was a teenager, and it's the music that's inspired me so much. And when I sing, I just sing authentic to myself and authentic to my soul. And of course, some of my influences and my inspiration is going to come out in the way I sing. Of course it is. You know what I mean? Like any musician is going to have influences, and it's going to come out. And some of the biggest reggae artists in the West, like Stick Figure and Revolution, they're all white guys. And so I just think it's funny when people start saying, like, accusing people of cultural appropriation for playing a genre of music, because it's like the Rastas, I'm not claiming to be a Rasta, but the Rastas know that the music is about unity. It's about getting beyond our skin color. So it's like, if you're accusing someone of not being able to play music based on being a white guy, you might want to check the racism behind that. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Isn't that so true?
So do you have another one you want to play?
sure,
Yeah,
let's do.
the Kingston one might be cool. Just
Yeah.
because we're talking about Jamaica, Mon,
Yeah, let's do the Kingston one,
as
because
I appropriate right there.
yeah, Jamaica man.
It's funny. It's like there's such a thin line there, and the appropriation's just sort of ridiculous, but like that, and then honoring that, like, like honoring a culture that you're inspired by, like you're propping it up. You're not
Exactly.
you're not stealing from it. You're not, taking from it for your own good. Like you are, and especially you coming from the true messaging, right? Like with your messaging in it, versus like even some of the young Marleys and stuff, and the succession from what Bob was doing, that's gone fully commercial and just like totally away from the original message, even though they're actually Jamaican.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's so much dance hall and trap that's coming out of Jamaica now, that a lot of that stuff has lost the consciousness. It's lost the true message behind it. So yeah, I agree. I mean,
It's just
yeah,
gangsta dollar
yeah.
bills, y'all.
And it feels good, just like the trap in the US, the trap, it feels good. The beat makes you want to dance. But that's the danger of it, is if the beat makes you want to dance, it's opening up your subconscious, and you have to be aware of what the messaging is that's being plunged straight into your subconscious. So yeah, I'll play. This one's called Change Ourselves. This song's just about how if we want to change the world on the outside, we have to change from the inside. And I happened to be in Kingston when I just finished this track, so I decided to shoot the video out there. So I will pull this one up now.
To change the world, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. We got to stop playing being the victim and take some responsibility for our lives. We got to stop causing harm and let this most fundamental truth shine bright. We got to know that we are inextricably connected. Our actions affect the freedom of the collective. Respect that when behavior is aligned with the correct intention, society will experience redemption. To change the world, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. Because the right is an action which does not cause harm to another sentient being on this plane. Respect that every human interaction must be voluntary, otherwise it is coercion, pain. We got to know morality is not subjective. Distinguishing right from wrong is objective. Respect that our creator gives us natural law directive and won't accept no act of aggression. To change the world, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. Well, are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry now? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry now? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry now? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry now? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry now? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry now? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry now? Are you going to compromise your integrity for the fear of making other people angry? To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. To change the world, we got to change ourselves now. To change the world, yeah, we got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves. We got to change ourselves.
Awesome.
Yeah, so that one's a little different vibe from the, from the psyop one, and I think that's kind of my goal is to balance the harsh calling out of the system and, calling out the lies and stuff like that, and then also the consciousness and bringing this prayer of natural law. And that song spoke a lot to kind of, you had touched on Mark Passio earlier, and Mark Passio was a really big inspiration of that song in particular, and all my songs, of just how we can teach, a right is an action that does not cause harm to another sentient being on this plane. Respect that every human interaction must be voluntary, otherwise it's coercion and pain. Just these simple messages of truth and sovereignty. So
The other big word there being integrity in that music video. And, I was just thinking about Bob Marley again. It's like, harking back to the times of Bear when you were in, at my age or before that, actually before in their 30s, like in that beautiful time of the 60s and 70s. when you had actually like famous artists standing up for integrity. I'm thinking of like Muhammad
Yeah.
Ali. I just actually watched Ali again, the Michael Mann movie, and like to have someone of his stature saying, "I'm not going to go kill people for a corrupt government," and then
A fighter, no less.
a fighter, no less, and then going to Africa to take on George Foreman, who was at his height of power and quite scary, and to defeat him in the ring in the way he did. Like that is an insanely inspirational story from somebody who is world famous. Bob Marley gets shot 2 days before he goes to play that famous concert to bring the political parties together. He's literally shot and he performs for 90 minutes and brings his country back together. And like these types of people, we just don't have them anymore. Like it, some would say maybe Donald Trump is one of those characters, and I don't know about that, but I only bring this up because, yeah, your message of like artistry and integrity, I think, is so crucial right now, and it would be like it's great to see someone of your caliber standing up for that, and that's why I want you to reach a lot more people, is so that you can impress upon that amongst the masses, like someone like an Ali or a Bob Marley did back in the day.
You know, uh, just speaking on reggae music in general, a lot of my life was spent in the islands, Fiji, then Hawaii, and we raised our family in Hawaii. And that was old Hawaii, where there's a little bit more of an authentic Hawaiian culture still vibrant. And the music there was always reggae. You heard it wherever you went, and I was kind of in the surfing circles there, and reggae was, our music. But the point I'm making is when you get into those more unadulterated cultures, they just, it wasn't about appropriation or taking on someone else's culture. They just felt, it was a common resonance, is what I'm saying. And yeah, it was just a great time. Unfortunately, Hawaii's been kind of captured, and even a lot of the remaining Hawaiians have really been subdued. But you get into all the island cultures in particular, whether it's in the Pacific or the Caribbean, and there's just that sort of common feeling, which is why reggae was adapted even on the Pacific side.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and it's just music that feels good, it's music
Hmm.
that feels good to the soul. It's nourishing and it's nurturing, and it has that divine feminine energy too. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people talked about. They talked about, Empress Menen as the divine balance to Emperor Haile Selassie as, these two beings being in divine balance, and moreover the divine balance of the masculine and feminine polarities within each individual. And I think reggae music really has that divine balance of that masculine groove, but then also that feminine flow. So
Yeah.
it's all
There's a
there.
couple fun bands who were spin-offs of the whole reggae thing, like, groups like UB40. They're a little bit more pop oriented and everything, but just all good, same, adapted the same sound, but maybe a little bit more pop oriented. But just yeah, it gave birth to a lot of good artists.
Yeah, absolutely.
Jimmy Cliff was another one of my early
Yeah.
favorites. He was just a little bit more kind of an uplifting reggae guy, and but yeah, just so many good artists.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I think is coming soon for me, I've been calling in a tune about bringing in some more truth to the history and also to the deception around the shape or the existence of our realm. And I know both of y'all have talked about that on several podcasts. I know you had Archaics on before. That was a really good one. I enjoyed that a lot. But just this idea that we're passing through this realm, and we know quantum physics tells us that we're not actually physical beings. We know that we're like 99.999 to the 10th power percent empty space. And this whole material world is an illusion, and it's so easy to get trapped and caught up in the material illusion. But when we realize that we're actually immaterial infinite souls, divine souls. I think that's where our true power lies as creators. And so that's kind of what I'm calling in for my next musical creation, to give you guys a little bit of
Uh,
a little heads up.
can't wait to hear that one. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a fine line. You know, you have your folks, like Berwick is saying, it's just a big illusion, and we're in truth. On the other hand, we don't want to go over on the other side and say that there isn't a vital purpose to our embodiment, within whatever you want to call it. So, and then of course, the purpose is to realize that we can manifest entirely, realities within realities, and not be trapped by our own creation, which is the incredible testament to the true power we have, is that we're the only species within this realm that have the ability to encapsulate ourselves and feel like we're trapped by it. I
Yeah.
mean, it's really spectacular when you think about it. And, rather than just rail against the matrix or whatever, it's just like, wow, what a trip. I mean, this is a true life adventure. And, what's on the other end of this thing? It's like, well, we can realize it from this side too. We don't have to wait till we're anywhere else. And the music, bring it back full circle, is a way we can access that other, we'll say, less material, but more real part of ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Do you use any, I'm sure I know the answer already, but do you use musical frequencies in your alchemical processes over
Oh,
in your lab?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about some of those processes, just briefly? I'd be very
Sure.
curious to.
We've talked a lot about this on former podcasts, but it started with my work within healing arts. And it was very specific. We had a sound room, and I won't go into all the specifics again about that, but we had ways to evaluate bodies on that tonal field level and find out exactly what that body needed. And then through a very elaborate combination in a specialized room of, acoustically prepared, subject them to certain light frequencies, tonal qualities, geometric projections, and things that were actually all resonated directly into their meridian systems by way of acupuncture layouts. Now in my lab, I do a lot of things where we open up portals when I'm preparing certain sort of things, and we do that with gases that the noble gases, so-called. And when you get into the work of, this may not sound musical, but when you appreciate, like what Walter Russell understood, that these noble gases, like helium, neon, and so forth, were actually the Akashic portals into different octaves that actually created all the elements of our, physical reality as we think of it. Well, if I want to have a particular influence of one of those octaves in something I'm making, then I'll activate, one of these instruments that actually projects within a 30-foot radius that particular portal for that octave, which is a projection through, compressed gas in a chamber within a magnetic device that has the ability to, do that. So that's a way, again, where you can, whatever you're making, and there's certain times and preparations where you're liberating certain elements from herbs or minerals. And if at those exact times you can create that radiance, real projection from that portal, then it can have a significant impact in a very precise way on whatever you're making.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thanks for sharing that. When you were saying that, it was making me think about how I think what a lot of the alchemists know and understand is that every single every single thing in creation, every single point is all connected in some kind of through some kind of frequency. So what I mean by that is, there's red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, those seven notes of the light spectrum scale, as it were, but just many, many, many octaves below that, you have actual musical tones that correspond to those light frequencies. And every single thing is a frequency. And I think then you're getting into the connection between that and the noble gases, also just octaves, above probably in terms of their harmonic resonance. And then same thing with geometry as well. All the geometry has, harmonics that can be connected directly. And so all dimensions, this is a multi-dimensional universe, and all dimensions are connected through, multiplying the frequency or dividing the frequency. And that's kind of like the law of scale and stuff like that. And things like that become very clear. I remember having a really clear experience of that, like a gnosis of that on one of my early LSD journeys, where I could literally just see how every single element of creation was connected to every other element through frequency and geometry and these kind of things. So yeah, it's fascinating to hear that that has been an influence in your work and the alchemy that you do over there in your lab.
Yeah.
So
And the resonance creates form or geometry as we think of it. But then it goes full circle. The geometry can also be used to create the resonance and go right back to its
right.
source. So you can use, and there's appropriate times to use either or both, depending.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I love that dual wave functionality. We see that in electromagnetism. You see it on all elements, right? The magnetic creates the electrical propagates the magnetic. It's a two-way system, and everything is a perturbation of the field. That's light is essentially a sound wave perturbation of the field. And where does the perturbation come from? Perturbation comes from us as thinking creation, elements of creation. So that's the artistry. Why artistry is so important, right? Is you're creating those perturbations in the field that will bring light to other souls, and hopefully increase the awakening. So props to you, my man. Well, this has been a great conversation. Anything else you want to get into for our audience? We already shared your website, by the way, in the show notes, so everyone go check
Yeah.
out prezencemusic.com. Do you have any I wanted to touch briefly on this, or sort of like Bear and I are huge fans of decentralization, and we've, I love that we're, seeing this alternative mediascape explode via collaboration, decentralization, not requiring the traditional distribution channels of the past. Like you said, you have a music studio at your fingertips that used to cost $1 million.
Right.
And so we were chatting briefly at Anarchapulco about this, and actually at Music in Sky, and talking about the Music in Sky Records and bringing artists together, but in a way that's decentralized and through our own platforms and stuff. But you were talking about a potentially innovative touring concept you might undertake. Is that still being thought out, and want to share?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, I think one thing that's just been coming up for me over and over again is the idea of creating intentional spaces out in nature. And I know this is very tied to what you guys are doing at Music in Sky too, calling it the great outdoors and things like that. But just literally going out onto public lands and setting up huge sound systems and bringing conscious artists together and bringing people together and just exercising our right to, be free on public lands and share music and ground in frequencies of healing into the earth through that is something that's been really coming through for me. So, and I really enjoy the technical aspects of acoustics and speaker design and things like that, and putting together really good sounding sound systems and acoustic spaces. So I think that's something that's coming down the pipe. But also in terms of the decentralized, distribution, that's something that I haven't fully figured out yet, but I am definitely seeing a lot of potential as far as how, like, SoulStream is a new platform that's out there. I know you've been working on Chordal. There's platforms that are allowing artists to basically be able to put out music on, or other forms of art too, on decentralized platforms, and directly connect with their audiences and not have these middlemen like Spotify, basically running the entire show. And, Spotify actually pulled one of my songs. They pulled my song Scam within a week, as you mentioned in the intro. So those platforms are not impervious to, censorship and stuff like that. So I'm very excited about the potential for where things are moving as far as creating new platforms where artists can truly thrive and truly be taken care of and connect with their audiences in a way that's sustainable for them. Because right now it's definitely difficult. Most artists are coming up with other income streams like myself. Like I have the Airbnb thing. Many artists are selling courses on music production in order to subsidize their income because the income is no longer there from the record industry has been destroyed pretty much. So now it's just the live music industry and what else you can do online. So definitely seeing a lot
Yeah,
of potential there.
I think a huge currency amongst artistry now is authenticity, which is really being valued again. And we're seeing that with like the utter deterioration of mainstream conventional media. Like nobody's watching CNN anymore. Nobody's
Yeah.
cares about network television because it's so inauthentic. And that's what's so cool about like your music videos and stuff. They're super authentic. And so how do you like get that across in a way that can bring in revenue? And so, yeah, like propagating that to your super fans in a way where you have like a membership club, like a value for value membership club. So we've opened that up for us, for Alfa Vedic. We have our own private membership on our website that people can choose, what level they want to join and all that. And that's helping fund our operation of being able to create, our beautiful health products
Yeah.
and further fund us. So like other ways, right, where you can have maybe like a monthly club where people can have a Zoom call with you. Maybe they get the first dibs for your latest release. They get the limited vinyl, maybe a merch drop. That's the sort of creative stuff I think that is making inroads right now, from somebody who's trying to develop that with Music in Sky. So we could talk about that. And then also coming together and collaborating. That's sort of what we talked about at Music in Sky, is like bringing you, Deepak, Steve
Yeah.
Young, Conspiracy Music Bureau, like doing what the record labels of the old used to do, which was smart because they were able to bring in the very best songwriters and production people and make the very best quality. And you can't deny that, like 1970s albums are like still breathtakingly beautiful because of the quality they had. But as you were saying, we can do that in lower cost studios, but then collaborate with all these brilliant artists and then go out on tour and bring this music to the masses more by each of you sharing with your respective audience other person's work in the way that we do like podcast swaps or whatever. And we bring in other podcasters on our show and we go on their show, etc. So that's other ways that we can collaborate and grow this, right, by working together.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And I see it happening. I see so much beautiful music that's taking off and so much conscious creation that's happening all over the world right now. And people are definitely ready for it. And yeah, I want to thank you for having me at Music and Sky because that just the gathering and the synergy of people there was unlike any festival that I'd played at before. And I felt like people were really getting it and resonating. Like you said, the authenticity is the new currency. And when you're able to connect with people who resonate with that authenticity and people are living in that authenticity, I think that's where we want to go. That's creating the world of our dreams.
And
So
what's great about all the opportunities, which are greater than ever, that are available to any creative person that wants to tap into it, is you don't have to look at your vocation. Whether it's music. I face the same thing in medicine, but if you look at it as your livelihood solely, then it just kills the art form. And of course, that's what the record industry did for so long. It just took, authentic artists and turned them into commodities. And now you're just a money-making machine and you lose your way yourself. And I was at the same crossroads, early on in my career. I opened up a practice and, kind of achieved a certain amount of success and realized that, I can't really turn this or, practice as a true art form because it's not. You can't really commercialize it. You can't spend enough time or, see enough people if you do it that way. So, the journey, similar to being a musician is you find a way to not compromise yourself and just open up and let the, the universe so-called, supply you, and just do that sort of trust. And, we're talking about entrepreneurship. It's the same thing. We've been, really they've tried to program us into playing it safe. That's why everybody's an employee. Well, you got a sure paycheck, but, entrepreneurship is about taking risk.
Yeah.
Being a musician, it's about taking a risk, doing what you're meant to do. And then, and it's amazing when you take risks like that, no matter what you're doing, you are provided for, and in ways that you wouldn't have imagined or even, been able to conceive of yourself, but it happens just like that. So, great that you're one of those courageous folks that are stepping out there and making change. So thank you. This has been a wonderful conversation.
Yeah, thank you too. I'm really grateful to have had the chance to drop in with you both. So, as Max Egan says, if you throw yourself into the wind, you can ride it. So,
Yeah.
and one last thing that I wanted to add, I wanted to shout out Dub Effects. He's been an inspiration of mine, especially as of recently, and I've gotten to do a few shows with him. And he really embodies the term rebel music, because he went from playing on the streets. He was busking all over Bristol and the UK and started busking, just living out of a van. And he went from doing that to having videos go extremely viral, and then being an internationally touring, headlining festival artist. And he's been gracious enough to take me on a small tour with him this summer, for 4 dates in the US. So we're going to be doing Salt Lake City and then Denver on the 28th and 29th of May. And then we'll be at Rise and Vibes, which is an amazing festival on the river in Colorado, in Durango, on May 31st. And then June 18th and 19th, we'll be doing Portland and Seattle. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out Dub Effects. He's a real legendary rebel music artist who has been completely authentic to his music from the very beginning, never sold out, never had a record label or anything like that. And he's paved the way for people like myself to be able to stay true to our music. So yeah, it's an honor to be able to do a small tour with him, and just really grateful for that.
Brilliant.
I love that. I love that you're going to some pretty woke places too. So
Yeah.
shine the light in those aesthetically deplorable places like Portland, Seattle, and Colorado, man. Like Colorado used to be so with it, and just like Denver and stuff. It's just so that's great, man. I'm glad you guys are doing that. And yeah, hope to kick it again soon. I had such a great time with you and Jen. We just really hit it off. And if you're ever guys want to come visit us, we've got a guest department waiting for you here. We'd love to show you around the Smith River area, the farm, and kick it. I know you and Bear would really hit it off in person.
Yeah, thank you so much. And likewise, if you all are ever out in Sedona. And yeah, Jen and I we had such a great time hanging with you and everyone at Anarchapulco. And yeah, just it's such a pleasure to just be around that quantity and quality of people at the same time, to be around that many people who are getting it and with it, and who are truly inspired and are doing their work in whatever ways that they can bring their work to the world. So yeah, grateful to have connected with both of you. Thanks so much for having me on. It's been a true pleasure.
And I'm sure we'll see and talk to you soon.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, nothing's by accident. There's a reason why we were there to meet. Everything has been divinely inspired, and we appreciate you so much, Grant, for all that you do. Can't wait to share more of your music. Can't wait to talk to you more about collaborating. I've talked to Matt and Owen, and we are serious about Music in Sky Records, or whatever we want to call it, and going out on tour. I'm sure my wife won't be thrilled about that, but it sounds exciting to have a big wrapped bus and hit the road, a bit. So Bear will come to some select cities, and because the idea, Bear, on this tour, by the way, we'll end on this, is like we would have a couple talks, like inspirational talks, about health, wellness, law, etc., and then like a mini Music in Sky on tour. So like a couple inspirational talks, and then like some really phenomenal music, and maybe some comedy thrown in too.
Yeah.
And some stand up, and then just go on tour a bit with a big wrapped bus, then like hit across the western states to start or whatever. And I think it'd just be fun and kind of old school, and film the whole thing. So I don't know. We'll see. These are always fun dreams to have. So appreciate you so much, man. Thanks so much for everything you do. And guys, remember to get outside, get your feet in the dirt, go plant something, go show Mother Nature some love. She'll show it right back. Got lots of seeds going. Bear and Deb have been busy out there in the garden. It's so much fun. Do you do any gardening, Grant, by
You
chance?
know,
Or?
so we just bought our house and we don't have it fenced, so the javelinas literally eat all of our garden beds constantly. But
Yeah.
we actually are just about to fence the yard here in the next couple weeks, and then after that, we're going to be going full on for the summer harvest. So
Awesome.
my partner Jen, she's an amazing. She actually ran a farm in Wyoming, like a full scale farm, and they sold to all of the restaurants in Jackson Hole and things like that. So she definitely has the knowledge, and I'm super keen to learn from her and get into that and commune with nature in a more one-to-one
Well,
way.
let us fix you up with the membership and the Alfa Vedic site. And Deb and I are doing our first presentation for the executive membership, where we do live question and answer. And Mike and I do it once a month for our executive members. It's open up to other subject matter, but Deb and I are going to just entertain questions on farming, off-grid living, and gardening.
Oh, that's amazing.
And
Yeah.
that's first one is this Monday at 4 o'clock Pacific Standard Time.
Okay, we'll be there for sure. Thank you so
Oh, right
much.
on. Yeah, it'd
That's
be fun to
awesome.
see you.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Bear. It's really exciting that you guys are adding that to the membership. So go check that out at alphavedic.com/join-us, just dash us. Also, real quick, Bear, Grant has an awesome a plunge and a sauna style
nice.
added that we were talking about at his pad. So he's super dialed in on the health tip as well. And
Nice.
this is what we're talking about: holistic, whole-bodied, beautiful souls right now, right, that are really, the artistry isn't just about, like Bear was saying, your vocation as just specifically like a dub artist or something. It's the whole holistic
Yeah.
full-bodied person,
Yep.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
As Derek Bros calls it, holistic anarchism. It's not just being an anarchist and being, F the government. That's not enough. We have to have the full beautification and the vitality from within to be able to actualize our potential and to have that full scale approach. So yeah, I definitely appreciate that.
Yeah.
And sorry, one more thing on the tour that we're planning, we can also do that fully off the grid, as far as like I have all of the knowledge of the solar systems.
Nice.
And I've run massive sound systems completely off of the sun. So that would be a really fun thing that we'd be able to do as well with our planting our seeds for our tour, is doing fully off-grid sound system. So
Amazing.
Brad. Yeah, Music and Sky has always been off grid, all 6 of them. So that's been a huge part of it, and I would love to talk more about that. So, okay, buddy. Well, hey, enjoy the rest of your day, and hey, love you guys. We'll see you next time. Peace.
peace.